Carl Gustav Mannerheim, born 1867 to Swedish-Finnish aristocrats, this is a man who would lead Finland through 3 major wars and ultimately kept Finland independent. Carl Gustav Mannerheim towers above all other characters in the annals of the Winter War. Arguably the greatest Baltic statesman since Gustavus Adolphus, he was an elusive, complex, enigmatic and powerful man who urgently deserves a good English language biography. He is unlikely to get it, if only because of the linguistic difficulties of the kind of research that would be required to do justice to the subject. He joins the military at the age of 14, goes AWOL at 19 and gets expelled from the Finnish Corps of Cadets. Instead, he joins the Tsar's Nikolaevsky Cavalry School, graduating in 1889. He wins a posting to the elite Chevalier Guards and is in charge of the dress and bearing of the sentries at the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. He has almost daily contact with the Russian royal family. Mannerheim is present at the last Romanov coronation in 1896, standing motionless at the steps to the throne. This is an event he never forgets, referring to it later as indescribably magnificent. During the Russian and Japanese War, his horse is shot out from under him during a reconnaissance patrol, and he's also promoted to colonel. After the war, he goes on an expedition throughout Asia covering 9,000 miles, and among other sites, visits the holy city of Lhasa. There, he established a warm relationship with the Dalai Lama, which he gave lessons on how to shoot a pistol. When World War I breaks out, Mannerheim fights under General Brusilov. In 1915, he becomes commander of the 12th Cavalry Division, rising to a rank of Corps Commander by the end of the war. Once again falling from his horse, Mannerheim is recuperating in Odessa when the October Revolution breaks out on the 7th of November 1917. Rather than travel incognito, Mannerheim hires a Pullman car and travels in full military corps commander uniform across Bolshevik territory towards Finland. At Petrograd, he writes, "It disgusted me to see generals carrying their own kit. However, I found 2 soldiers who quite willingly took charge of mine." He crosses into Finland after they declare independence. As the most experienced soldier that the Whites have, Mannerheim is thrown into the conflict, slaughtering the Reds when given the opportunity, and his men burn villages and mutilate bodies. This is where he earns the nickname the Bloody Baron, mainly for his role in the White Terror. Some hold Mannerheim responsible for every death, some say he didn't know what was happening on the periphery of his command. The historical debate still rages over this issue, so let us know what you think in the comments below. Mannerheim wins the campaign, freeing Finland from Russian dominance. Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany even rewards Mannerheim for his efforts with the Iron Cross. Mannerheim is therefore the only military commander who fought against Germany to receive this medal. Finland becomes a democracy, something Mannerheim isn't fond of, mainly because of its reliance on political parties, but also because he was an aristocrat. His ideals came from a lost world, a world where gentlemen in glittering uniforms conducted their business over sherry in gilded drawing rooms, and then adjourned, tiara-clad ladies at their sides, for an evening at the Imperial Ballet. He loses an election for president in 1919, and is unemployed later in the year. So Mannerheim goes on to found the Mannerheim Child Welfare Association in 1920 and becomes chairman of the Finnish Red Cross in 1922. In 1931 he's given the post of chairman of the Defence Council, resigning in 1937 after numerous disagreements with the budget and the bureaucracy. Stalin demands territory from Finland in October 1939. And Mannerheim urges the government to concede. He understands that the Finnish military, at least on paper, is not capable of defeating the largest army in the world. When the Winter War breaks out, Mannerheim is instantly made Commander-in-Chief of Finnish forces. I'm not going to cover in detail Mannerheim's exploits during the Winter War or the Continuation War, mainly because I may cover these wars in my future Battlestorm documentary videos. But he basically manoeuvred Finland through both wars, ultimately to keep Finland independent from the Soviet Union. What most people imagine about the Winter War is the Finnish ski troops running circles around the Soviets and slaughtering them. And while this did happen, Finland also fought a more traditional and positional war in the Karelian Isthmus in the south of the country. Here, the terrain didn't favour ski troops and guerrilla warfare, and the Mannerheim line in the Karelian Isthmus was named after Mannerheim. Some, mainly pro-Soviet historians, claim that the line, the Mannerheim line, was an incredibly tough nut to crack, whereas others, mainly pro-Finnish historians, claim it was barely a series of log dugouts and trenches. The truth is probably somewhere in between. What is known is that the line, manned by inexperienced but determined Finnish troops, stops the Soviets dead in their tracks. This allows the Finns to conduct their famous ski troop actions in the north, where they resort to guerrilla tactics to run rings around the Soviets. Eventually though, thanks to a lack of anti-tank guns and a renewed Soviet effort costing many lives, the Soviets do manage to break the line. Gathering 80 artillery pieces per mile, Timoshenko sends wave after wave of Soviet tanks and men against the Mannerheim line. One by one, the Finnish strongpoints went under, submerged beneath waves of fanatically brave Soviet infantrymen who pressed forward ruthlessly. Time after time, Finnish fire would mow down hundreds of men in the first waves of these attacks, so that those pressing forward from behind were forced to climb over the windrows of dead and dying comrades. As each successive attack dashed itself to pieces, the rows of dead were closer and closer to Finnish lines, until ultimately the assault swept into the trenches and the horror of hand-to-hand combat would erupt. Eventually, no matter how many Russians died in such costly assaults, every Finnish strongpoint subjected to these attacks were overwhelmed. And yet it still took 10 days to break through the Mannerheim line, and it cost the Soviets many losses. During the Continuation War, it was Mannerheim who made the decision not to advance and take part in the siege of Leningrad. This would have massive implications on the Eastern Front of World War II. He became President of Finland in 1944 at the age of 77, remaining in the post for just 19 months due to exhaustion. He then resigns and retires to Switzerland, where he remains for 5 more years before passing away on the 28th of January 1951. Legend now surrounds him, although there's no denying that he had many successes and failures during his life. He was an aristocrat, he hated Bolshevism, and his physical presence was overpowering. When Hitler met Mannerheim for the first time in June 1942, it was the Führer who bowed, while the Baron remained stiffly at attention. He cared about Finland, but he wasn't nationalistic, which was perhaps a blessing during 1944. Mannerheim was one of the great leaders of the 20th century. He led Finland to independence and kept it there. Not bad for someone who didn't even speak Finnish properly. Yep, you heard me. Mannerheim spoke Swedish, was fluent in Russian and French, and could get by speaking English, Polish and German, but needed Finnish translators with him until he was 50 years old, after the Civil War, and apparently he never mastered the language. Love him or hate him, Mannerheim forged Finland's independence, and for that, he is remembered. The source I used for the script of this video comes from The Winter War by William Trotter. I highly recommend picking up a copy of this book if you want a good introduction to the Winter War. If you haven't done so already, check out my other history videos, including my Battlestorm series, which are filthy detailed documentaries on various World War II battles. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, bye for now.